Hi, everybody. It's Angelo Caruso. I'm here with Mary C. Kelly, Commander Mary C. Kelly. How are you, Mary?
I'm great, Michael. Thanks for having me on the show today.
You are coming with high credentials. I can't wait to learn more about you. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody that's watching this video that you can hear the audio version of these interviews on the Talk to Me podcast. If you're listening today on the podcast, you can watch the video versions on my YouTube channel. Mary, we have a million mutual friends in the speaking business, and I understand you got into the trade after you retired from the Navy, correct?
Well, I was actually teaching at the Naval Academy. I was a professor, but I was in uniform.
Well, you were
And
speaking even then.
I was speaking even then. I was born speaking. My parents are like, she started talking the day she was born and just has not stopped talking, which mostly got me into a lot of trouble. And then I found out, wow, there's some people who actually don't like speaking in front of crowds. I'm not one of those people. So when I was a professor at the Naval Academy, they oftentimes have community events, and they would always ask one of us to go out and do a talk. You know, the Boy Scout Jamboree, Marriott International, the FBI. And everybody always calls up and they always want the Admiral. And the PAO person was like, the Admiral never ever gets to do these things. It's a terrible idea. So they touted me out like a pony. You know, here you go. There's a dog and pony show. There's Mary. And I liked it. So I didn't realize until I was at one of those events and I met another professional speaker. And he was like, hey, kid, you're pretty good at this. And I was like, well, you're pretty good at it too. He said, well, I should be. I'm a professional. I was like, wait, you can get paid for this? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And he said, not only do they pay me, but they took me out to dinner at Roy's last night. They put me up at this really nice JW Marriott hotel at the waterfront, and they gave me a gift. And I was like, okay, one of us is doing this wrong, because I got the pen that I picked up from the hotel lobby. And that was my sort of introduction into this new world. And I remember that was my aha moment. I drove home and I called a gal pal of mine and I said, I think I know what I'm going to do when I retire out of the Navy, because apparently you can actually do this.
Good for you. I had a similar experience. I was in the business world, and we were a sales team, and the sales manager wanted the salespeople to speak at trade shows. And salespeople who you'd think would have the gift of gab, they all kind of put their heads under the table, and I liked it. I came up from the music business. But you're right, a lot of people don't like speaking in public. What do you think that is? Is that a confidence issue, or is it something else?
I think it's deep-seated. I think it's what we're born with. And I had a little bit of a musical background. It turns out I have no actual musical talent. I just like to perform. And so that fed into that. And I made a lot of mistakes when I was doing musical work on stage. And I learned a few things. I didn't die. You didn't. And second, when I nailed it, it was great. So that kind of got you over that fear. But I think most people are afraid of it. And in the same token, we sometimes in the business world, we tell people if you're in sales, you should be able to talk in front of people. If you're the CEO, you should be persuasive in front of groups of thousands. And I think that's the stupidest thing we tell people, because some people get nervous, their stomach gets sick, their hands get sweaty, they sweat, they're nauseous, they dream about it nights in advance. Why do we do that to people? It's mean. When you or I, they were like, Michael, go talk to a group of 5,000 people. You're like, yep, got it. I'm like, this is good. Nobody tells me, Mary, you should get over your fear of being electrocuted and just do your own electrical work. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I have so many friends. I think you're right too about the performance stripe, because it doesn't matter what kind of people you're in front of. If you're a juggler, musician, stand-up comedian, and that goes away, or for some reason you can't do it, you can move to the speaking business. I saw recently a podcast where Scott Adams, the guy that created the cartoon Dilbert, is now in the speaking business.
Oh, he's a great podcaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got content. He knows how to cultivate a following, and he's just going about it a different way. Is my attitude. Good for him. Tell us about your time in the service. Where were you deployed, or where were you stationed?
So I started out as an intelligence officer. I went to school to be an intelligence officer, and then I was assigned to QB Point, Philippines, and that was where I mostly stayed in the Asian AOR operating area for the next 17 years. So I called it the Trip of the Month Club. When you're young and you want to go places, the military is a great place to be, and the Navy certainly deployed me well. So I deployed to arduous places like Australia and Thailand and Hong Kong and Singapore and Diego Garcia and Japan and Korea, and I love Asia. So I learned to speak a couple languages. I spent a few years in intelligence, several years in intelligence, and then I migrated into more of a logistics role. I got to be an HR director for about 3,000 people. I got to be part of the team that ran a base you may have heard of called Pearl Harbor. I was a chief of police, and then I got to do some other cool jobs in the middle. So the military is great because you're only in any job 2 to 3 years. And by that time you realize, okay, you have to get good at it fast, which is why the succession planning book that I wrote with Meridith, who you had on your show, a lot of people think, well, what would a military person know about business succession planning? And that's part of that, because we know you're only in that job 2 to 3 years. So in order for the organization to be successful, you have to be prepared to take over right away, but you also have to make it a success orientation for the person coming after you. So we put together these military turnover binders. So when you walk into any job, the first thing you grab is the turnover binder that's been left by all your predecessors with notes and, hey, this is what you got to do, and here's the people you call. And I was a little bit surprised that the civilian world didn't have something like that more institutionalized. And so one of the things we do is we took the best that we possibly could from the business world as well as the military world in terms of how do you create long-term, getting the right people in the right jobs at the right time, long-term succession planning at all levels of an organization.
Yeah. Tell us, everybody, the name of the book. It's Who Comes Next. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the Leadership Succession Planning Made Easy book called Who Comes Next. And I was fortunate enough to partner with Meridith Elliott Powell on this. She and I had worked a couple projects together on succession planning and leadership development, communications, conflict, employee engagement. And the CEO of that particular organization said, so this year with you two was great, but now I need this all in a book. And we said, well, here's all the information. That she goes, no, I need it in a book that I can just read every night by the bed. And so we looked at each other and went, oh, I guess we're writing a book now. We'll have it to you in 6 months.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Meredith's great. I had her on the show, and she reminds me of you a lot, actually. Good energy and just good people. You mentioned
it's easy to work with good people, for sure.
I agree. Yeah. You mentioned learning languages. You know, a little callback here to something we talked about earlier, this idea of being able to get on stage and be okay with making mistakes. That's kind of what language is. And that's why kids, I think, are better at learning languages and musical instruments. Kids make mistakes and they just start over again. When adults make a mistake, they get embarrassed. There's got to be a bruising, a healing process. You got to have the gumption to do it again. It's a thing. And it sounds like you've remained a child at heart in that way in terms of learning and picking up new stuff.
I think a lot of my friends would probably say I've got childlike tendencies in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm the first person, if there's going to be a puppy or a kitten or some kind of animal experience, I'm going to be the one there. I took 5 young people, none of my children, none are mine, to Nepal for a couple weeks of economic research. And one of the briefs that you have to go through before you go is don't touch any of the wild animals because they have, rabies, and, you can get Japanese encephalitis and all these other things. And all my young people were like, got it. And somebody looks at the brief and goes, we're not the ones you have to worry about. It's the professor. So, there's a little bit of that, but it's the same reason why you don't want to go get a new phone, because you have to relearn things and it's frustrating to you. And a kid is going to sit there and figure it out. If you're ever stuck on something with your phone, you find some child in a hotel or in a restaurant and with their parents, and you're like, hey, does your kid know anything about this phone? And they will tell you. The 7-year-old will figure it out. We as adults don't like to be frustrated. One of the aspects of leadership that we've cultivated is make sure your people are set up for success so that they don't feel frustrated. Because when we feel stupid or frustrated or embarrassed, we tend to shut down. Kids, not so much. This is why children are fearless. Well-nurtured children are adventurous and fearless because they don't know any differently. And I think sometimes as we get older, it's kind of that fearlessness has been beaten out of us. I'm at a certain age and station where I'm like, I do want to live. There's a few things I should be afraid of. This living thing's a good idea. And, when you're 20, you don't think about that either.
Well, I think it helps to have a safe learning environment, whether that's a formal school or a household or a workspace. If you're always afraid of making mistakes or getting called out, it's going to hamper everything from innovation to expression, right?
Well, I'm not really sure. I grew up in an Irish Catholic household, which is a lot like an Italian Catholic household, where there's a lot of conversation going on and you were challenged on your ideas. If you said something, there'd be six people jumping on you telling you why that was stupid. That helped us all formulate ideas. We all are now able to persuade based on facts. We look hard at data, all of us growing up. And I think that actually made us better. You know, you can't just get away with saying something stupid without somebody going, hey, that sounds a little stupid. Can you back that up? I think it's helpful to have to have the ability to back up what you say with some kind of facts that is, and I'm talking real facts, facts that are accepted by most people, not just the stuff that we make up because it works for us.
Yeah, yeah. How many siblings did you have, Mary?
I am very, very fortunate. I have three amazing siblings. My older brother was a Marine helicopter pilot. His wife was Navy. My husband was a Force Recon Marine. My younger sister was the Air Force officer in the family. She married a Navy maintenance officer. My younger brother was a Navy pilot. He married a school teacher, and my God, do we need her in our life? We all talking. What?
Were your parents military?
No.
Oh,
No.
that's interesting. So how is it that all the sibs ended up in service?
Did I mention we were Irish Catholic? It's pretty much the same thing.
I was Catholic, man. I never got close.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, it's kind of the same things. Lots of rules, lots of discipline. You know, the military was. I mean, I used to tell people the military was easier than living at home.
Yeah, yeah. And thank
You
you
know.
for putting, by the way.
Oh no,
Your,
it's an honor and a privilege to wear this country's uniform every single day. It was an honor.
nice. Your CV says that you trained 40,000 personnel.
I talk a lot,
What did
and I was in
you
command, which meant I got to train, and then other commands would bring me in to train their people. At one point in time, I was in charge of the Navy's largest pay and personnel office. And this was at a time when the Navy first rolled out this idea of, for the military, like a 401k option called TSP, the Thrift Saving Program. Well, I was in charge of that financial thing, and I have a PhD in economics. So people would say, well, we don't understand what this program is. Can you come talk to our people? So at the time, I had about 178 member commands that fell under my jurisdiction for pay and personnel. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can come over and train your people anytime you want, because I'd already been a professor. I taught economics. I wrote a personal finance bestseller. I'm still in uniform. I only sleep like 3 hours a night, which is wildly helpful. And so I was able to train all these commands on things like finance and retirement and saving, and as well as leadership and military stuff. So it was, again, just another opportunity for me to get in front of people.
Yeah. What's the most valuable thing you've learned about teaching?
Teaching is all about getting.
You know, prime a beginner class of teachers. What would be the big valuable lesson that they should keep in mind?
So it's a lot like being a speaker and being nervous. The reason you're nervous is because you're inside your head. The whole thing about teaching is it's not about you at all. It's like speaking. It's not about you at all. It is about the other person on the other side. And
Yeah.
you have to see it from their perspective always, because that's what matters. Communication is all based on what the receiver understands. And if you're a good teacher, you're making information easier for your people and easier for them to take the right action. If you're a bad teacher, all you're doing is making, and we've all had those teachers. I have an engineering degree. That's my bachelor's from the Naval Academy. I'm a horrible engineer, and I didn't get it because some of our professors were so excited about talking about something and making themselves sound smart. And they're way more excited about that than actually conveying information and breaking it down and making it easy. Our job as leaders is the same thing. Our job as teachers is the same thing. We have to break it down and make it easier for other people to take the right action. And it's hard because sometimes, you maybe don't know the information that well. That's on you. You got to prepare. Maybe you're not so sure what your reaction is going to be. Get inside their head, not yours. Your head, you've got all your own crazy. You've got to get inside their head and make it about them.
You keep in touch with your mates from the service, from the Navy?
Wildly, yes. So there are a couple different groups. Social media has made it far easier, of course, but we just had our reunion in May of from 1987, when we all raised our right hand as commissioned officers, and we did an entire Zoom class. We had wound up being about a 4-hour happy hour. It was planned, and we got together, and then some of the gals got together from our class as well on a Zoom call, and We check in with each other. There's about 700 of us who are pretty active, staying in touch. I have some amazing classmates. David Robinson, who played for San Antonio Spurs, Sonny Padilla-Williams, who's the astronaut. They're the ones people know, but my classmates are amazing. And the people I serve with are fabulous. And my best boss in the military was an Army Lieutenant General, and I'm still in touch with him. He taught me he taught me things like, you're never going to have perfect information, so make the right decision now. And a lot of people wait because they don't want to be wrong. And that was such a huge leadership lesson, And I feel like the military, we do have some of the best leaders on the planet if you're willing to learn. And I felt really fortunate. I learn a lot from my classmates even now. If I've got an idea and I throw it out and a couple of them come back and go, that was real stupid, Mary, they're probably right. And I'm the first one to say, I listen to them. The first time I have a book roll out, I go to my classmates, I'm like, hey, what do y'all think? And I had one absolutely like pen and ink. He probably spent 3 days on this thing. And he said, by the way, you say something and then you never actually get around to like solving the problem. I went, wait, what? And he said, you use this phrase, but then you don't answer. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I kind of hinted around it. I wasn't so direct. And they're honest with me and they tell me what I need, when I need some course corrections, kind of military style. And I love them for that.
What year did you say you were commissioned?
87.
And in 87, what percentage of the class was female versus male?
So we started with about 110 gals. We graduated 69 out of about 1,100.
So 1,100 total in the class and 69 were female?
Yes.
Okay. And has it improved through the years? Do you know?
I don't, by improving, do you mean more as a higher percentage of women?
Yeah, I don't know why I say that. There's like this trend to increase women in top leadership. Maybe a higher percentage doesn't improve. What is your thought?
So combat restrictions on women were not lifted until 1994. And so because of that, it's really recent. So even though women were out there doing this, you couldn't be considered in combat because it wasn't sanctioned by Congress. So that got a few gray areas gray. Anyway, so because of that, it wasn't until 7 years after I graduated that they thought that was going to be lifted. They actually thought it was going to be lifted way before graduation. So until you can put people in all the positions, it doesn't really make sense to have more people if they can't be fully utilized. And so that has all been lifted now. And so the numbers are higher. Now we've got about 26% female at the Naval Academy.
And where are you on that? Because we went through the same thing, are going through the same thing with police and law enforcement. I think it's been lifted to a great extent. I don't know exactly where it is, but it was based on everything from body weight to strength. If you were, if you had to take a perp down, is it different in the Navy? Is there a reason why a woman who's small in stature couldn't receive the rank or do things that men could do?
For most jobs, it is not based on physical size, although certain professions, like Navy SEAL teams, the training is wildly difficult and it is based on a lot of muscle mass. It's hard for anybody to get through that, regardless of gender. But for flying planes, as long as your arms can reach the consoles, you're fine. For driving ships, the same thing. But there are certain jobs that do require more strength, like firefighters. If you're going to be a firefighter, you have to be able to lift, 200-pound whatever and throw them over your right shoulder. So there's certain jobs that do require strength for sure. But most of our jobs now are more cerebral. And one of the fitness tests in the Navy was you have to be able to touch your toes without bending your knees. I will tell you, on active duty, I never ever had to touch my toes to complete a mission. Like never.
Yeah. Some rules die hard. I've read, and I don't know this is true across the board. I don't even know if it's provable, but I've read that women are especially good with procedure, which in theory would make them better pilots because there's a lot of procedure in the flight deck, right?
You know what? I don't really know. Both my brothers are pilots and they're really good pilots. So I don't know if there's actually a gender difference. I think in terms of some Leadership, I think combinations are really helpful. I love working with men. I love working with women. I love working with everybody. And women do tend to say more words than men, which can be helpful when during times of stress, when people need assurance. So
Yeah.
that can be sometimes helpful. In times of extreme crisis, when words are at a premium, then more direct communication is helpful. When I became a civilian, I had to learn to use more words.
Really?
Yes, my brothers and sister and I all talk in short, choppy sentences because we're all military. So for example, where are you based out of?
Well, I'm in Detroit.
Right. So what's the airport code for Detroit?
DTW.
Right. So when I fly to Detroit to see you, and we're going to have a lovely dinner, I don't say to my siblings, because we all text every day, hey, just got to Detroit. So excited to see Michael. This is going to be so much fun. Had the best time on his podcast. We're new best friends. Can't wait to have dinner. He's taking me to a great Italian place. Can't wait to hear what I'm having for dinner. Love you. No, it's 6 letters, SOD. Safe on deck, which means I landed there. And then DTW, you said?
Yeah.
Yep. Detroit. Yeah. And that's it. That's the airport code. ATL is Atlanta, DFW, Dallas, DEN, Denver. 6 letters. SOD, safe on deck, I'm here. DEN, Denver, back home. Safe on deck means the plane has touched down on the carrier. So you're walking away from that landing, so you're good. Everything else is implied. Everything else is understood, perfectly understood. Of course they know I love them. Of course they know I miss them. I'm going to have a great time because I'm going to go see Michael. All of that is understood. They get 6 letters. Conveys it perfectly.
SOD than SOL, that's for sure.
It's a little bit different.
Well, when you think about that, even radio code, when I don't know if they still say 10-4, but we don't say goodbye or see you later or talk to you soon. It's 10-4. That means you're done with the transmission, right?
Copy, Roger, 10-4.
Yeah. Invented by men, most of those phrases.
But it's so practical. So I'm telling you, I had to, my very first talk in front of all women. So occasionally, you know, I'll get called in to do women's groups because they have those. But I do a lot of work in linear spaces, which tends to have a lot of men. So hardware, financial services, insurance, manufacturing tend to have a high percentage of men. And because they tend to be a little bit more linear thinkers. So my very first female audience, I was terrified because I had never seen that many women. It was like 5,000 women. I'd never seen that many women ever in my whole life, all in one place.
Do you do better in front of women or men?
I don't think it matters. I enjoy people, and I know that the vibe is going to be different, but I enjoy both. So I feel very fortunate because I think some people might be nervous going, you know, with all men or all women or some combination, but I love everybody.
I think I do okay in front of men. I certainly have had enough experience with it, but I don't enjoy it as much because they're not as effusive. You know, it's just harder to read them.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
Body movements, they'll laugh. The men kind of keep it in. They'll smile but not laugh. So now I don't have the audible. It's fascinating. And the mixes, 50-50, 70-30. Do the men feel safe? It's bizarre sometimes the mixes that we get.
I did a women's conference back in February, and there was one man in the audience. And by the way, if you're that one man in a group of like 1,000 women, everybody knows who you are. It is really, really good marketing and product differentiation on your part because everybody knows who you are. Yeah. It's the same thing as if you're the only female in a group of men. Everybody knows who you are. So there's both more of a pressure for that as well as good product differentiation. So, you know, you're the blue M&M.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about the military. Everybody's always interested in the military. If you haven't actually served, it's like this mystery thing that's going on. Not because, I don't know why it's a mystery, but maybe because of some of it's confidential, but I think the military is terribly misunderstood. Why do you think, or what do you think is the most misunderstood about the military? Why do people stateside constantly not get this right?
So a couple things. First, when you have a draft that forces people into the military, it makes it seem like it is the worst possible option because you don't have a choice. This is why we rely on an all volunteer force, in my opinion. That the draft, I would get rid of it because it just costs us money and it serves no purpose. I don't want to lead somebody who doesn't want to be part of our nation's military. If you don't want to be here, I really don't want you either. So because of that, we do have an all-volunteer service now. We haven't had the draft since Vietnam, thank goodness. And it's easier to lead people who want to be there, number one. But when people were forced into it, it made it seem like it was something that you wanted to avoid. And that's tough. The second thing is for many people, they thought if you were in the military, it meant that you were dumb. And that's still there. I mean, people said, oh, you had to join the military because you didn't have any other choices, because clearly fill in the blank, you didn't have choices. So sometimes people just assume that because you're military, you're dumb. I come across that a good bit, which can be really fun, by the way, because people tend to underestimate you, and that's really great. But it's also, I think, many of our portrayals of military people, especially from Vietnam era, my husband was a Vietnam Marine, was if you came back from Vietnam, you're either messed up, you're living homeless under a bridge, you've got PTSD, you've got all kinds of problems, you're not a productive member of society. And that made people afraid of them. I remember a gal pal of mine, we were out having dinner someplace, and there was a group of 5 or 6 young men, and we were close to a Marine base, and she said, I'm just so afraid of the Marines. And I was like, wait, you're afraid of the Marines? See, I had the exact opposite. I'm sitting in a bar with a bunch of Marines at the table next to me, and I'm like, the good guys are here. And, it's just a matter of how your perspective is. I said, are you kidding? I said, first sign of trouble. I said, I'm like, hey boys, we got this. And they're going to be like, you got it. I mean, to me, that group of young people, they've got my back and I've got theirs. So it's a very sort of different experience. And I think the media does portray it a little badly. And by media, I mean Hollywood movies. And, we take those few things. And then we do see people standing on street corners, homeless, vet. A lot of those people are not vets. They're not vets. Some are, but a lot of them aren't. And so I really appreciate the guys holding the sign that says, look, I'm just looking for beer money. I'm like, yeah, you can have $10. That's great. I'm all about the honesty in advertising. So I think the military gets poorly portrayed in some ways. And then the other part of it is that for a while, everybody thought if you were wearing your nation's uniform, you were automatically just, an angel, a saint, fantastic. That's not true either. We're just, we've got better training than a lot of people, but that doesn't mean we're all perfect and we're all angels and saints, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's so fun to talk to somebody who's in the know about this stuff and has both perspectives. I think another thing people are worried about now that we haven't been in the past is the relationship between the commander in chief and the military. It seems like there's more, less solidarity than there has been in years past. How would you characterize the military's relationship with President Trump?
It doesn't matter who the commander in chief is. You take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the officers appointed over you, including the commander in chief. It does not matter who the commander in chief is. We are apolitical. I am apolitical. I'm an economist. And I tell people are always saying, well, stay away from politics. I'm like, I don't do politics. I'm an economist. And I was military, which means you don't get to do politics. You do not get to participate in any rally, pro or con in uniform. You cannot use your name on anything. The military has got to be apolitical. We serve the country. That's it. So that is what we take an oath to do. You support and defend the Constitution. That's it. Yeah. And if you think that the orders that are coming down are unlawful orders, you have the UCMJ. And as an officer, you are still subject to the UCMJ until you officially are retired at age 65. I mean, so you can retire off active duty, but if you've served your 20 years and you're basically kept on a retainer, and that means you remain apolitical. So a lot of times there will be, well, there's this list of military officers who say this. And then you look at it and go, none of these people were actually military. So some of it's just made up.
Okay. Well, I think everybody's familiar with the top-down arrangement that everybody's serving at the pleasure of the president and that kind of thing. Just circling back to our earlier conversation about teaching and messaging and making sure people get the communication, it just seems like there might be a little bit more confusion or a bit more I don't know. I don't even know how to characterize it because I've never seen this kind of thing before. And by the way, I'm apolitical on this show as well. I'm just interested in how people communicate and how things are getting done. If you say there's nothing to worry about, I trust you.
Well, it's not that there's nothing to worry about. It's not that we're dumb about these things, but you have to remember every 4 years there's an opportunity and you're working for another commander in chief, which means, or the same, you don't know. But the political appointees that you work for is the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Navy, Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary of the Army, whatever. Those are political appointees. And so your boss changes or could change every 4 years or even more often than that. So biggest lessons that translates into the business world is stay focused on the mission, vision, and goals, because it is very easy to get caught up in chaff. So chaff, if you've ever heard the term chaff in the military, think of a big hefty bag, like a big old garbage bag, and it's full of sawdust and it's really metal shavings. So let's say you're in a plane and all of a sudden you see this bleeping noise on your console, and it means there's a missile locked onto you. That is a bad feeling. And the first words going through your head, by the way, not happy birthday, not happy birthday. So all of a sudden you've got this missile locked onto you. And so what you do is you wait till it gets into a certain range and then you release the chaff. So this chaff is this big air balloon, this cloud of metal shavings in the air. And the missile gets in the middle of it and it goes, wow, all this metal around me. I must be where the plane is. I'll blow up here. Boom. While you fly safely away. That's the idea. Chaff. Chaff is a distraction. And in the business world, I use the term chaff as confusion, chaos, attention deficit, because we're all competing for people's attention, fear, and frustration. And that is certainly true in today's business world. So it's very easy to, if you watch the news 24/7, you just want to jump off a bridge. You just think everything is terrible. That's chaff. The news used to be a whole lot more facts. Now it's, to me, a huge distraction. So I tend to watch financial news and not a whole lot of much else. When in doubt, just watch reruns of Friends or Family Feud, something just to keep your mind off things and stay focused. Because all the stuff around you, there's enough fear, there's enough frustration, there's enough confusion, there's enough chaos. We've got to stay focused on what's really important, and that's building a great business, taking care of your people, taking care of your family, running a great business so that you can help your community, help the people around you, and be a good person for whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Good advice. Your website is productiveleaders.com. Productive leaders, most of them have bosses. Can a new boss be a form of chaff?
A new boss can be a form of chaff, but they can also be a breath of fresh air and bring in new ideas. And it is totally up to that leader on how they do it. I did see one leader who totally blew it with his entire sales team. Young, about 34-year-old guy, motivated and working hard, fast runner, fast burner, all those things, walks into a group of pharmaceutical salespeople and said, so I'm new and I'm really excited to be working with you, but I'm going to need to see you every day from like 9 to 4. So it's pharmaceutical sales. 99% of it happens on the road. And everybody just went, you're stupid. And they were all gone in 78 days because in one sentence, he told them, I don't understand the business. I now don't trust you. And I'm unsure of myself. And they were like, we don't want to work for you. We can do better somewhere else. Everyone left. So young leaders, new leaders coming in have to be very careful about making sure you don't make stupid mistakes. And one of the dumbest mistakes you can make walking into a new organization is not listening to your people. It's trying to establish yourself. If you got nothing to establish, that can be dangerous. Now, if you're a seasoned leader and you're brought in to clean house, that's a different approach. So different situations, different people, different approaches, and different personalities. That's why leadership is so fascinating, because there is no one size fits all. We say good leadership is good leadership, but it depends on the person. You, Michael, can give me a short, choppy sentence and go, Mary, I need you on call this time here. And I'm like, yep, got it. We have perfect communication. Other people may need more words.
I heard you say in one of your videos that people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad bosses.
I think that's probably true because you signed up for that job. You competed for that job. You knew what the salary was when they offered it to you. You interviewed for that job and you said you were going to be the world's greatest worker. You loved the company, you loved everything. And then somehow that supervisor came in, and your direct supervisor is the number one person who influences your longevity at the company statistically. And that person drove you out. And in the military, you kind of don't get that option. Of course, you can leave the military. But my thought at the time, it was good advice I got from someone else. I didn't think of this, but she said, never allow one boss, one location, or one position to drive you out of the career you love. And I thought that was really good advice.
Yeah, it is. Very good. You've got a new book coming out and a freebie for people to kind of attract them to it, maybe pick it up at the bookstore or online. Tell us the name of the book.
So the name of the book is 5 Minutes Per Week, 52 Weeks to Building a Better Business. And I know that's long, but it's 5 minutes per week. And the idea is I took the best of my 5-minute plans on vision, goals, business planning, productivity, feedback, focus. And I've got about 70 of them. I took the top 52 and categorized them as business planning, business growth, leadership, teamwork, and productivity. Threw it together in an 8.5 by 11 book, and it comes with an online vault of all 70 of the tools. And each one of those is a downloadable, fillable PDF. So I want to share with you, your leaders, listeners, wherever they're getting this. If you go to my website, productiveleaders.com/MPL. I was thinking Michael Patrick something, MPL. Yeah, you'll be able to get a great sampling of those 5-minute plans. My team used to sell them for like $197 or something. And now they come with the 5 minutes per week, 52 weeks book that's on Amazon, and it comes with the online vault. And we're just hoping this propels people's businesses forward. And I'm also looking for new ideas. I did a podcast last week for a multi-level marketing group, and I thought, you know what? I should have a 5-minute plan specifically for an MLM. So that's on the list. I'm always adding to it. And if somebody's got a new idea, like I've got a business challenge, send me an email. It's mary@productiveleaders.com. And if I have a 5-minute plan for it, I'll send it to you. If not, I'll probably write one.
Well, you certainly sound like you get a lot done in your 21-hour day.
I'm very, very fortunate, Michael, because I've always had pretty good high energy. I don't think I'm as good as Meridith. She's crazy. But I wake up and I'm raring to go, and I feel really blessed every single day that I get to do what I get to do. And I do think I'm wildly fortunate to be able to do this. I think I only have two. I mean, we all have superpowers, and I grew up in a small business. My dad was a businessman. So I've been working trade shows since I was like 7. And I'm selling stuff since I was 10. I was that kid who was like, wait a second, I can go babysit for $1 an hour, or all these people can bring their kids over to my parents' house and I can get $1 per kid. That is way better. So I'm always about maximizing the efficiency and the resources and all that. And I've been that way since I was a kid. You can't take credit for that. Nobody can. It's just something, you're born with it and you got lucky. And that's all I got. That's what I got. Also, I drink like a sailor.
You're impressive. I'm so glad we had time today. Commander Mary C. Kelly, everybody. She's also a PhD in economics. Her website is productiveleaders.com. Get the online vault. I love that name at productiveleaders.com/MPL Michael Paul Larry. We're going to make it Larry.
Love that.
Mary, best of luck with everything. It sounds like you're on a really, really good track for helping lots of leaders become more productive. I really appreciate you doing this interview with me today.
Michael, you are helping a ton of people by doing these podcasts. People appreciate it, and I'm just so glad we get time together. And I'm going to see you in Detroit. We're going to have a great Italian dinner.
SOD DTW.
Yes.
Thanks, Mary.